And our protocols is not different from what is used internationally. I don't know about the Indian one, but it's not different from what is used internationally. And we know that pooling is not a new thing that just came out of the blue for us to start using it. It's been there for years. As a research institute, we have done so many research that we have turned out credible information and credible data with pooling. So it is not something that maybe we can say that is not a good thing to do, or you have to do positivity rate and all that before you start doing it.
Of course, pooling, the merits of pooling as a method of use is not what we are discussing here. And in fact, even in this same document I'm reading, it says that when you are doing research, with that one, you can do pooling in a number that is convenient for you. It's just that I was wondering with the positivity rate. I've understood now that with that, it is calculated at the Ghana Health Service end, which is why we're seeing a bit of a disparity between some of the figures you mentioned and what we saw on the website. However, I just want to find out, because Dr. Ampofo mentioned that he could say that the figures given to the Ghana Health Service represented a certain number of individuals, and that certain number of individuals could be used to calculate any sort of rate. Does it then mean that perhaps after you handed over your results to the Ghana Health Service, they would do the calculations that they would like to do without consulting Noguchi and without checking to see if it represents the specific number of individuals that you tested?
You see, I think you have to put it in the context of what we do as an institute. Noguchi stands in to test. So we get different samples from facilities across the country. Then we test. But there's a system of reporting. That is, after testing, what do we do? Our head of lab or head of the institute will give the results to the appropriate quarter, that's the Ghana Health Service. And they will now tell the world or tell the nation about what we have had. So what they do at that point is very difficult for us as Noguchi staff to talk about. How they do their calculations and all that. In fact, so for some of us, we hardly even go to the website. So I don't know what is going on there. Ours is to do the testing and give out the results to them and do our research that we are doing. So
Understood.
As to what they do, they've done, I will be very... I don't know.
We understand totally. We simply brought you in on this because of the specific parts that Dr. Ampofo mentioned, that you have given certain data to Ghana Health Service, and that is what that's what they are working with, which is why we asked you some of the questions about how you forward the data to Ghana Health Service and whether or not you can vouch for the data at their end. Because, Dr. Bonnie, we have established in our conversation that there is a clear disparity between the number of individuals you are testing and what is displayed on Ghana Health Services website as being tested and as seen 115 positive cases from there. That is not something that we can dispute at this point. I just quickly want to wrap up on some other aspects of what Dr. Ampofo mentioned when he was addressing the press yesterday.
Professor Ampofo.
Professor Ampofo, pardon me, Dr. Bonnie, thank you very much for that. Now, Prof. Ampofo mentioned that you had some challenges with some samples. And so when you received those samples, they did not come with forms. Can you explain that for us? How many samples were affected in this way? And if a sample was taken from an individual, how does he know that he should come and resubmit a sample to you?
When we started, the truth of the matter, when we started this, we were taking all the samples into the lab before we do the checking. That is, we check the sample against the form that comes with the sample. Each sample or each individual sample comes with a form. That form contains demographic details or clinical details about the person whose sample has been taken. So someone can come in with 40 samples against 40 forms. So initially we were taking them to the labs before we would just match the forms against the samples. So that's where we're having problems. So somebody, because it's in the heat of the matter, somebody will just come and dump the forms there, the samples there. We take them to the lab and realize that the forms necessarily do not match the samples that they are claiming or they have brought in. Sometimes we have a case where we have so many samples, but the inscriptions on them are either faint or cleared, so we cannot match them with the forms that are with the samples. So if it happens like that, usually we have a contact details at the back of it. We call them to tell them. Either they will come in to rectify those mistakes. If we don't get them, we pack it aside till we get them, and they come and take the samples. And either they retake samples and bring it to us, or they come and take the samples away. And they come and correct those mistakes in the lab. But recently, what we are doing is that we just at the entrance of the building, before the samples are taken into the lab, we have personnel there that will scrutinize the samples that you are bringing in against the form that you are bringing in individually before it is taken to the lab. So these initial mistakes initial anomalies that we're having, now it is cut down to the barest minimum. We don't have those things again.
So for the persons who are affected, does it then mean that there are people whose samples have been taken in the past that they may not know and they will still be waiting for their results?
So what happens is that if we are able to get any information about where the sample is coming from, we try to contact them and tell them that they should either come and rectify or go back and take new samples and bring it to us.
How many have we been able to correct?
How many? I don't know the figures offhand. I have not checked, but we were able to. Every day, even now that we are checking them, sometimes we still have problems. So we call them. There are some that they will come immediately. Some people too take some time to come. Some, when they are coming, they come with new samples. Yeah. So that is what is actually happening now.
But realistically, there are still persons out there who have submitted samples and may not get results, and there will be no way of knowing.
They are not getting results now because the results are not ready. In fact, what is happening too is that we have a lot of people doing the testing, and we have some number of people entering data. With respect to the results that we are getting from the testing. I think the first part is going faster than the second part. That is, those working on the samples are going more. They are doing more work because there are many than the people entering the data. So some people talk about the fact that their results are delayed because it has not been entered. So when they come and they tell us that, we go back to the lab where the results are done, then we check and we inform them. So that is what happens. So the delays that we have in the system with regards to the results is because some part of the work that we are doing is going more, rapidly than some other part. That's the entering of the data into the database and giving out the results to the individuals whose samples we have tested.
Right. So, Doc, I was asking, and there are two parts to my question. The first part is that in the first place, Professor Ampofo, pardon me, did mention that you are currently facing challenges with some samples.
Right.
And so I was simply trying to establish whether or not those challenges mean, and he said that with those samples, we don't have forms for them. And he was speaking in the present tense yesterday. So would that then mean that there are persons whose samples have been taken and they are none the wiser? I was also asking because there is a delay for about 2.5 to 3 weeks in our research in speaking to persons who have been tested, and they are still waiting for their results.
So there's a delay for 2 and 3.
Yeah, 2.5 to 3 weeks. I know persons who have been tested for more than 2.5 weeks, and they still haven't received their. We're just trying to understand what reason there could be.
That's what I was trying to say. That if we have people like that, yes, truly we have some forms or some samples that we couldn't match with the forms. And I said earlier on that when we go back to the forms and we get the contact details, we call these individuals or these health directorates and inform them that this is the issue we are having with their forms or their samples. So they either come, pick these samples, or go take new samples and bring it to us. Yes, what Prof. Ampofo said was true. Initially we had a lot of these cases, but most of them have been resolved because we have called them to come either with new samples or come pick their forms and samples and rectify those mistakes. So we have done that. For those who are complaining or who are saying that they have not had their results for a period of time, what we usually do is that when they come or when we get to know of this, we go back to the database and we get the results to them. Like I said earlier on, we are having a bit of delay with the entry of the results against the samples that are being tested. So we tested so many, but the delay is where we are entering the results and giving out entering the data and giving out the results to the individual.
So, Dr. Bonnie, your advice then would be for them to come to you and come and
Yes, we have
complain?
a dedicated line. I don't know the number offline, but those who have been calling, they have the number. So we have that dedicated line for results. So when they call in, my colleagues here will just rectify it. They'll just go into the database, check the results, and inform them. If it's not ready, they will let them know. And also, we have to know that, you see, we are receiving samples from the hospitals where we call the clinical samples, and we are receiving contact tracing samples. The contact tracing samples are so many. In fact, sometimes we can go as high as 5,000 on a day. Then the hospital samples, we can go as high as like 20. We run them alongside. So certainly, because the samples from the hospitals are not many, we'll get them finished within 24 hours. While the samples from the contact tracing site may go beyond a day or two.
Okay.
So somebody may call that, I have not had my results for maybe 5 days. We go into the records, the results are ready. We just give them out to him. Maybe it has not been entered into the data, so the person calling has not called to inform them. But that doesn't mean that the work has not been done.
Dr. Kofi Boni, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
You are most welcome.
He's a senior research fellow at the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research, and we were just going through step by step, first of all, what it means, all the information that we've been hearing. So he ended by saying that, look, if you've done a test, it's been a while, you haven't heard your results, please reach out to Noguchi. Unfortunately, he didn't have his number offhand now, but we would get that number, put it out. So if you haven't received the results, reach out to Noguchi. They've had some challenges with some of the samples. Some of the samples don't have matching forms, and so they can't trace the persons who gave the samples. Right. It's 19 minutes past 8 here on the Super Morning Show. Let me say good morning to my next guest, Dr. Elikem Tamaklo. Good morning, Doc.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm blessed. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Great. Dr. Tamaklo is here because, of course, he heads one of the largest private hospitals in the country, Yahoo Medical Center. We want to go into this conversation with them and ask, what's the role that private hospitals are playing? How can they be supported? What should patients look out for when they are going there? There's also the side of them being a hospital and them being a business. So what does this COVID mean for hospitals as businesses and also as healthcare centers, which is basically a social service? We'll go into all of those. If you have any issues, if you have any questions, send them in 0244-340-437. A bit later, we'll discuss the impact of COVID on party politics. But after this, we talk to Dr. Tamaklo. Stay with us.
Mommy, I'm hungry.
Oh, Hema, today is Mommy's day off, so